All right, welcome back to the 52nd episode of the podcast, The Unknown. My name is Michael Volpe. I report from Chicago, Illinois, where I am right now. That's in Cook County, Illinois, and I write at michaelvolpe.substack.com. You should all subscribe. My broadcast partner is Richard Luthmann. He lives somewhere near Fort Myers. That's in Lee County, Fort Myers, Florida. Lee County, Florida, named after Robert Edward Lee, the loser of the Civil War, always for all of history. And you write at luthmann.substack.com. He got the consolation prize, got a county named after him in Florida. Luthmann is spelled Luthmann. We got a jam-packed episode, and we're going to hopefully have an attorney turned family court litigant named Matt Grant with us later, who's filed an interesting civil RICO lawsuit that hopefully is going to be like a domino effect. At the same time that we got all of these task forces all around the country for family court. But we got to start shortly after our last broadcast. President Donald Trump met with the Russian tyrant Vladimir Putin. He literally rolled out the red carpet. I mean, they actually had red carpet rolled out for him. When he went in, he wanted to get a ceasefire, but Putin pulled like a bait and switch, and he wants like a full peace deal. However, that peace deal includes getting approximately 20% if Putin gets his way. And obviously, this could be like a Pawn Stars, start out high and see what you can get type deal. And then, so there was nothing agreed upon. There couldn't be anything agreed upon because he didn't meet with Zelensky at the same time. Then he met with Zelensky earlier this week. This is from the Kiev Independent. They are cynical. Zelensky wants a meeting. Putin wants to win. I generally agree with the way that they are presenting it, but what are your thoughts? Oh, and the goal now, and Zelensky wants this, a trilateral meeting, Putin, Trump, and Zelensky somewhere, and see if they can hammer out a deal.
So the optics of Anchorage, I think Trump won the day only because of the optics. First, when they came out on the red carpet, they come to the podium, that platform over there, and the B-2 flyover, and Putin was like surprised, and then Trump head and shoulders larger than him, shows the largesse of the United States on the global stage. Reminds us that Russia is not a superpower anymore, the way the Soviet Union was. Reminds us what Russia's plan here is to try to exert its influence and try to become a superpower. The fact is that that's been their game all along, and the Chinese are lurking in the background. We've heard a lot from Gordon Chang. We've heard a lot from a lot of the China experts saying they're talking about the geopolitical issues. Basically, Russia is the gas station for China. That's what they are at this point. So fast forward now to what happened earlier in the week in the White House. Okay, they have a meeting. They say, well, we're not doing a ceasefire, but we want a full peace deal. We want to go straight ahead to a trilateral talk. They bring everybody. Everybody comes to the White House. It was the level of a NATO meeting or a G8 meeting. Everybody came to the White House, and Trump was playing the top fiddle. And everybody kind of realizes that if they're walking without America or they're moving without America, they're just going for a walk. Now, I think we're going to get this trilateral meeting, and I think the trilateral meeting will. It's either going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be fruitful and there'll be a peace deal, or it's not going to be fruitful. And then Trump can turn around and say to Vlad, I've done everything I could. You've tapped me along, and hold him to account. Now, the problem we have, though, internally with the Ukraine is that if there's going to be any type of land concession, any type of redrawn land, any type of issue, then there has to be under the Constitution, there has to be, I'm not exactly sure if it's a ballot measure or a legislative approval, almost like the level of a constitutional amendment in the United States by the full parliament of the Ukraine. The question we have, though, there haven't been elections there in a few years. So we have claims that Zelensky is an illegitimate leader, that it's an illegitimate legislature because there haven't been elections, and now they want to cede territory to get peace. That creates a bit of a paradoxical democracy problem in the cessation of land. And this might be exactly what Putin's playing at. Putin realizes the problem with respect to the logistics under the Constitution of the Ukraine to make it real. It may be this is a bad faith ouvrage by Vladimir Putin, which is something we should come to expect from this guy. He may be tapping this whole thing along, like Trump said months ago, In a couple of weeks, we might have a very pissed off Donald Trump, and the United
Right,
States.
yeah. A pissed off Donald Trump is no better than a happy Donald Trump. It might be. I look. Putin is like, sure, if you give me 20% of the Ukraine, exactly what I wanted when I started this war, we can end it right now. Right now, this is a bad idea. It's work in progress. I could be wrong. Trump is being played. The thing, Putin.
No,
there's two things about
not
Putin.
at all.
He's very wily, but he's also a paper tiger. But you have to understand how he's a paper tiger. Since the beginning of the war, Europe should have figured out a way to stop getting their energy from Russia. If he sells a lot of natural gas and oil to the rest of Europe. If this was reduced significantly, his economy, they have tech companies, they have manufacturing, but they're pathetic in almost everything except for natural gas and oil. It's basically a one-trick pony economy. That's what you attack. Rolling out the red carpet, it's embarrassing. This guy, in a naked aggression, invaded another country, and you let him sit there with you, go, yeah, no, we can. I want peace. I just want 20% of the country invaded. He's being played by a guy who's a lot more wily. He plays to his vanity. Trump is right now an idiot on this, and this looks like it's going to turn out really badly. And he'll delay it. Or look, yeah, Putin will stop the war if you give him 20% or something close, and then they'll invade again in a couple of years. It's not going to end well, in my opinion.
Mike, I feel like Giorgia Meloni listening to Merz, the German prime minister. I'm rolling my eyes listening to you think that Donald Trump doesn't have this fully under control. Of course he's going to roll out the red carpet because that's the way you do diplomacy. Unless there's another way to do diplomacy, and the Roman generals did that when the barbarians presented themselves and their leaders, and the Romans chopped off all their heads and sent them back to the barbarian lands. Trump could do it that way too, but I think Trump's going to get a little bit better, a little bit further, without chopping Vladimir Putin's head off by rolling out a red carpet and trying to do a trilateral meeting and trying to get where they have to go. Now, Michael, I agree with you.
So you invaded a country and you're rewarded with a high-level meeting with the leader of the free world, and the red carpet is rolled out for you. It's embarrassing. He's failed on Ukraine from the beginning.
Is done. Do you want to stop the killing? This is how diplomacy is done. The red carpet is rolled out, and then the B-2s flew over to Trump to show we're still in charge, little Vlad. Little Vlad and little Vlad. That is what this is.
Right.
It's not hard. It's a show of magnanimity of Donald Trump, showing that.
Right. No, this is his vanity. He's being played. He's acting like an idiot. It's not hard to stop the war if you give Putin everything he wants. That's not hard. And that's basically.
He's asking Putin. That's what Putin's asked for. We haven't heard anything back about a counteroffer yet. And that's smart.
Right. No, he wants 20% of the Ukraine, which is
that's
embarrassing that he walked into that meeting and Putin walked out saying, well, if you give me 20%. All right. I interviewed Marty Gottesfeld, who is an activist for CPS reform and a lot of other things. One of his stunts when he was trying to save Justina Pelletier, who was being medically kidnapped, landed him in jail, not just in jail, but in some of the toughest prisons in the U.S., including the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, where one Jeffrey Epstein was also housed. Not at the same time, though Marty was housed there. And Marty, hacker is probably, he doesn't like that term, but he's like a tech guy who, what he did was he redirected a bunch of internet traffic to the website of Boston Children's Hospital, which is affiliated with Harvard, at the time that their main donation drive was happening, and it shut down the website. But look, this wasn't a website that had any medical records on it. It was a website that said, hey, Boston Children's Hospital is on 55 whatever lane in Boston, Massachusetts, and here's our top doctor, and she really loves to work here. That's the website he shut down. They gave him like 8 years. It was ridiculous. But he's been looking at the Epstein killing, whether it's a murder or not. And you should subscribe to his Substack at martyg.substack.com. And so one thing that he found was, and I didn't quite understand this, but in the IG report, he said they misrepresented the floor plan to make it look like more of the camera was covering the only entrance towards Epstein's cell. And he said that's not the only entrance, and that's not the right version of the floor plan. But there's other very interesting things. Epstein was in one of the few cells without its own camera. The floor, most of the cameras were down, not all, but most at the time that he was killed. He didn't have a roommate at the time he was killed, even though a psychologist recommended that he have a roommate, and he had a prior incident. And his roommate had been moved. They didn't proactively take steps to make sure someone was moved in to be his roommate. Marty said if there's that many cameras out, and they did know about a day or two prior that the cameras were out, protocol would be to shut down the floor, which makes sense. It's a safety issue. If most of your cameras aren't working, you can't have prisoners roaming the halls. The video that Bondi released is pretty much bogus. It goes for 10 hours. You don't see anything bad on it. However, it has no direct line to Epstein's cell. There's about like 2.5 minutes missing. Apparently, every night there's like a minute 20 that goes away because they like reboot or something. That's outrageous. But on the central question, Marty and I disagreed. This is all evidence of incompetence. But the autopsy found no evidence of anything except suicide, meaning there was no defensive wounds. There was no evidence that anyone messed with Epstein, that he died by hanging. Marty pointed out that Jeffrey Epstein's family did their own autopsy, which came to a different conclusion, maybe. But also the cellmates around his cell, they didn't see anything. They didn't see anyone come in. Now, Marty took issue with the way the IG report characterized it, because they said no one came in. Well, obviously, unless you were up the entire night, you wouldn't know whether anyone came in. Fair point, but there's just no evidence anyone came in. There's no evidence that there's anything but a suicide. But these errors. Oh, and then the last one is they're supposed to do rounds regularly every hour, and they stopped at like 10 p.m. and they didn't pick up until 6 a.m. the next morning, and that's when they found him dead. So it was during the time they didn't do rounds, and Marty said MCC is notorious for lazy guards. A lot of problems here. I still think that he committed suicide. Marty said it's like, in his mind, more likely than not that he was murdered. But the errors, whatever you want to call them, not fixing the cameras that aren't working, not shutting down the floor, not making sure he, of all people, is in a cell that has its own camera, not making sure that he has a roommate. All of those things are not only inexcusable, but troubling. You just wonder how much of the prison system is being run that way. And I looked it up. They've had a lot of prisoners die by suicide, by murder. Some are going to die because their sentences basically call for them to die in prison. But our federal prison system allows a lot of people to die. And this happened about a year after Bolger was murdered. And that at the time, those guys were probably the two most high-profile prisoners that the prison was holding. And both of them died in unnatural circumstances. And, a lot of people brush off, especially Bolger, well, he got what he deserved. Yeah, he did get what he deserved. It's poetic the way he died. But no, you're not supposed to allow your prisoner to be manhandled and brutalized by other prisoners. You're supposed to protect them. They're supposed to die of natural causes, which is what would have happened to Bolger. I think you watched some of the interview, and here we'll watch. Oh, and hold on, I got to do this. Go ahead. We'll watch the part where he explains about the video. And I'd say Bondi and the Trump team, I don't know what they're hiding, but they're not helping themselves because the way they're releasing this, it looks like they got something to hide. Maybe they do. Epstein's cell from this view, is it?
No, you can see kind of the leftmost inches of the staircase.
Is it like off there?
Roughly. So you see you can't see my mouse, but there's like stairs just barely visible near the center of the image, and those stairs go to Epstein's tier. But the problem is more than half of the staircase is blocked by the wall.
All right, so there's further problems with this video, but it goes for 10 hours.
Yeah.
A little more, 10 hours. I'm sorry, almost 11.
Almost 11.
But in that 11 hours, did you find anything suspicious on this video?
Not directly. Like, there's no one that I see approaching Epstein's cell who shouldn't have been.
Even though Epstein's cell isn't in view, and there are other problems, That does suggest it's a suicide because there's 10 hours of video that suggests nothing.
Well, how's it? I don't think it suggests either way. I mean, because it fails to give a complete view of the approach to Epstein's theory.
Right. Okay. Well. So she releases an 11-hour video that's basically useless. I mean, why even release that? It looks like misdirection. She meaning Pam Bondi.
So I have a few points on the whole Marty interview. First and foremost, the viewership and the readership should know that the deep staters inside the Department of Justice would not let Marty contact me. And I was not allowed to be part of the interview, and I'm not allowed to share my information with him that I have, because I have read the full family autopsy, and I have talked to, and Frank Parlato, when I was with Frank Parlato on this story, talked to members of the Epstein family about what happened. And I disagree with the DOJ's version of events. The fact is that you would need to be a Cirque du Soleil performer in order to have killed yourself with a suicide the way that it was presented based on the family autopsy. And the family autopsy is supported by good medical doctors.
But there's no evidence. But hold on, but there's no evidence anyone else was in the cell.
Well, no, here's the point. Here's the point. You said that there's no evidence because nobody else, none of the prisoners, told the police that they saw anything. Michael, the worst thing you could ever be in prison is a rat. Okay?
Right.
If I saw somebody come and hit somebody over the head with a hammer right in front of me, the cop comes 2 minutes later, did you see anything? Nope, I didn't see a goddamn thing. Because you don't rat. That's the biggest thing. You don't tell the police nothing. If you're inside prison, you want to that's all bullshit.
Right.
Bullshit. Okay?
Right, but hold on. But even Epstein's family's autopsy didn't find any defensive wounds, anything that would suggest that someone came in and forced him to be hung. So,
yeah. So did they have the full body? Like, one of my working theories is that they came in and they shot him up immediately with something, and then he was limp at that point. So you would have defensive wounds. And then the way that they hung him. The only way you could get into that hanging position was to be a Cirque du Soleil performer. So they hung him and he snapped him up there. They affixed him up into the noose and snapped him, and that in a way that is humanly impossible. Okay, so these are questions that are not answered by the quote-unquote official version that the deep state manufactured Epstein report. So we need to get to the bottom of this. But the deep state doesn't want to let people who have all the information get together, which is evident by they won't let me and Marty talk. Marty can't collaborate with me because of the deep state, and this is the problem.
It has to do with Marty being on released from prison but still having probationary terms, and you having a felony. It gets very, very complicated. The rules are stupid.
They made a felon. The deep state made him a felon. They sent him for 8 years. For 8 minutes. So this is the deep state, Michael.
Right. One thing, there's no question he committed a crime. He'll acknowledge that, but. The amount of sentence. So one of the first articles I did was about a guy named Tony DeMasi who pled guilty, and they found the fraud to be $6 million. He got 60 months in jail. Marty got more time in jail than Tony did. Marty, redirected some internet traffic, shut down a website for a few days. Tony DeMasi defrauded a bunch of people out of over $6 million, and yet Marty's crime is somehow bigger. Ridiculous. And Judge Rebecca Pallmeyer, who we're going to talk about a little later, she sentenced Tony. And Tony, by the way, promised that he would never commit any more crimes to me. And he's, I think, just getting out of jail again for another 1-year stint in Michigan. But there's no question they did that to him. And you're right, and they set you up. And now you guys can't talk to each other. And you had the same problem with Frank because he was doing like a 5-month house arrest for not filing some paperwork on a tax return.
Not filing a form.
Right, ridiculous, awful. And many years prior, and by the way, Frank paid the taxes on the money he got. He just didn't file.
That was a bullshit Kathy Hochul, Billy Hochul job. It was a Democrat Party job.
So we are looking at Mark Fincham, the state senator, the Republican state senator from Arizona, who we interviewed about family court, but he is on. I don't know what program he is on, but he is talking about
Greg Stinchfeld on Real America's Voice.
All right, so what is he alleging here?
Well, he's been talking about this. He's constant as the North Star on this, that there was a huge money laundering scheme perpetrated by ActBlue. And the money laundering scheme was in the purchase of magic mortgages. And so what they would do is they would take a loophole in the law that allowed for money to come into title companies, and then use that in order to funnel monies into ActBlue, launder it, and then use it on Democratic Party elections. And so he's been tracing this for years. Okay.
All right. It sounds complicated. All right, let's play it. So
the world is this, Senator.
So we have this architecture that when you buy a house, generally it goes into escrow. You have a title company that handles the escrow, and there are a number of documents that go into it. So just at a broad scale, let's imagine you buy a house. Grant Stinchfield buys a house for $200,000, and it's funded by one of the North American banks. We'll just say Wells Fargo. Please don't sue me. All the records, including the mortgage, the deed of trust, the Alta insurance policy, all of those records are recorded in the county record. Then just a few minutes later, your $200,000 house suddenly has a $200 million magic mortgage that comes through. It's nothing but a wire that goes through the title company. There's no lender involved because it's a hard money loan, what they call a cash hard money loan. But because it goes through a title company, there's no notation of who the lender is. And it goes on through the system. Now, what's interesting is, and this is what caught our attention, these are ActBlue officers, corporate officers. Once we found one, it led to another and another and another and another. So we have them all over the nation. And this is just one small fragment of the human map. You leave this digital dust, if you will. This is one small fragment.
You have all of these gigantic financial transactions. Now the question becomes, how do they funnel that back into the campaigns? Is that the small dollar donations that we see that show up at some lady's house and she's donated to ActBlue 52 times and she knows nothing about it?
Well, that's just one small aspect of it. So James O'Keefe, got to give that guy credit with the whole smurfing piece that he's done. And we got to be careful about what we're calling this. This is a research project because we're not licensed investigators. We want to make sure that people understand that this money is going into organizations that this architecture was set up by Barack Obama to spread cash around the country and to put money into political action committees, into non-government organizations, to fund candidates, to set up the whole architecture for a public relations machine, read basically propaganda machine, to promote the whole concept that we're a team. We've got great funding. It's all behind us. So here in Arizona, for example, the Arizona Democrat Party, not more than about 5 weeks ago, it replaced their chairman because their fundraising is 25% of what it was last year. Well, where did all the donors go? So what we're talking about here, Grant, is wholesale fraud, where the money is distributed by ActBlue officers. And now, because we're not federal law enforcement, we don't know exactly where it went. But that's why we've turned it over to U.S. attorneys.
And that brings me to the real news, I guess, is that you have handed this over to the Department of Justice. What has been their response of taking the evidence? We'll call it evidence because, nothing's been proven yet. I'd like to get ActBlue's response on all of this. But you turn over this evidence to DOJ. What do they say to you?
We are now engaged in conversations with a number of U.S. attorneys, former U.S. attorneys, lawyers who are not yet confirmed U.S. attorneys. So there is great interest. I've got to believe that Attorney General Pam Bondi has forwarded this out to the folks that are the financial crimes folks. And by the way, it wasn't just the AG. We also sent it to the IRS Criminal Division and to the FBI. So Director Patel also has this.
All right.
So, Mike,
there was always be a mortgagor, no matter what.
But Mike, stop for a second. Your background's in finance, right? You're a finance guy, right?
I'm not buying any of this.
Oh, wait, you're a finance guy. Wait, stop. Let me make my point. Then you could not buy it. You were a finance guy. I worked offshore, and I worked for banks as an attorney as well. One of the biggest, most important things when you're dealing with clients anywhere is KYC, know your client, and anti-money laundering regulations. Correct. Right. And so one of the biggest things that we have to worry about in our country and our elections is having foreign influence and somebody being an agent of a foreign government or an agent of a foreign interest. If you don't know who your client is, and ActBlue is funneling money around the country,
ActBlue is not funneling.
We have a very big problem. There are people that sat in prison.
This is all garbage. Number one, there's always a mortgagor. You may not recognize who the mortgagor is. It may not be Wells Fargo, but you have to have a mortgagor. So it would be blatantly illegal to not have a mortgagor. And the idea that on some sort of a large scale, title companies would be putting $200 million loans on $200,000 properties all the time. There's plenty of scummy title companies. I don't buy that's happening. I don't know what he's discovered. You also wouldn't take this to the U.S. Attorney's Office. You would take this to the FBI. The U.S. Attorney's Office prosecutes. The FBI investigates. You wouldn't take it to both of them. I don't know what he's got here. I don't think this is going to lead anywhere. That's my opinion.
I'll tell you why it is. And the fact of the matter is this, okay? If you have a situation where you have a foreign government or a foreign moneyed interest that wants to go through elections, there are three places that you go. One is title companies because they have the omnibus accounts. Two are attorneys, IOLA accounts, and we've seen that the Democrat Party law firms have been guilty of this as well. And number three, you do specialty insurance contracts. I think all three combine together to move offshore funds into the United States to manipulate our elections. I got it. It's a
nice story. All right. I got it. It's a nice story. I'm not going to keep talking about it. All right. I wanted to very quickly talk about this. Ashley St. Clair, one of 4 women who have had children with Elon Musk, is saying she's going broke after career suicide, which I don't know how she could possibly be going broke. I'm pretty sure that Elon is going to play hardball in the custody case, even though he refused to acknowledge the child. The point, his private life is a mess. There's no other way to describe it. But what I find interesting about this is very little has come out about the custody case. She doesn't even do that many interviews, even though almost anyone would have her on. And that is part of a pattern with rich guys like Elon. Sergey Brin, his one-time friend, maybe they're still friends. Maybe Elon had an affair with his wife. Maybe he didn't. Well, as soon as that came out, all of a sudden that divorce disappeared. Susan Bassey, who we'll talk about later, she actually looked into it. She tried to watch a hearing. They wouldn't. Or I don't remember what it was. Some court-related matter that is supposed to be open to the public. Wouldn't let her watch. They got a private judge, sealed it. Nothing. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. You think there's a lot that's come out. There's really not that much, considering Brad Pitt accused Angelina of parental alienation and Angelina accused Brad Pitt of physical abuse. You would think that would be a hot story day after day after day. The one exception that I can think of is Kevin Costner. When he got divorced a couple of years ago, he didn't get to hide anything, and that was primarily a child support alimony thing. He offered to pay his ex-wife $60,000 a month, over $700,000 a year. She said that wasn't enough. They got into a lot of arguments because his show, oh my God, I forgot the name of the show.
Yellowstone.
Yeah, that was ending. So his argument was, you can't base it on my current income because that's about to drop off significantly. It was rather obscene to ask for. I think she was asking for like $100-some thousand a month, that she would be making like $1.3 million. And her argument was, well, when you compare it to what he makes, the kids are obviously not going to want to spend time with little old me. And the judge ruled mostly in Costner's favor, but he went through the ringer. That's the consequences of open courtrooms. But usually, rich people like Musk and Brin are able to hide their divorces, which the general public doesn't get to do. And that's basically what's happened with Elon here as well. Any thoughts?
Well, I don't buy the Ashley St. Clair that her career is over, because she should just go find another billionaire to sleep with. I think that's right. I think that's what she can do. She already perfected the art once. I think she can do it again. Lightning can strike twice to this young lady.
Right. He said he supposedly is paying her not a lot for him, but a lot for 99.9% of the public. So if she's going broke, maybe the place she's living in is too expensive for the amount he's giving her. She has a choice, but I don't buy that. But we haven't really heard that much about the kid.
The kid is a Musk. He ain't going to be doing an Oliver Twist shoe factory type thing.
Right. But no, look,
a little crazy, a little drama queenish.
I don't think Elon's going to let her starve, but we haven't found out that much about that custody case. We know very little about the custody case with Grimes. Both Grimes and Ashley have suggested that they've gone broke fighting him, but you get very little out there. Grimes, his custody case with Grimes is sealed as well for reasons that aren't clear, just like Sergey Brin.